We are also available on Spotify, Google, Stitcher, and more if you want to listen to us on the go. Link is down below. Welcome to Coffee and Conversation, the podcast where nothing is off table. Today, I am indulging in a coffee that was given to me by my brother. So for those of you who can see me, there's this froth thing going on top. And just to let you know, the flavor for this one is hazelnut vanilla, I think. I can't remember the exact name, but I will definitely leave it as information in the description box below for those of you who really love coffee. But the reason I have froth on top is because I'm kind of a sucker for the aesthetic of froth. It doesn't have to be, whipped cream. It doesn't have to be frothy milk. What I like to do is I got these little spinny things from the dollar store. Yes, from the dollar store. And all I do after I pour my coffee and put my milk is I just froth the top. That's it. I don't know why it's a thing. I just enjoy having that frothy top. It makes me feel like I'm having the whipped cream without technically having the whipped cream. Let me know if you have a weird habit that you like to do, because I don't even know why I started it. We obviously have a milk frother, because the biggest connoisseur of coffee is actually my husband, Pat. He is a coffee snob. He's even made cold press. Cold press? Is that the term? He makes coffee in every way possible. So we do have a milk frother or a cream frother or whatever they're called, but I just don't use it. I like my little $1 store gadget. I'm a simple person. What can I say? Introducing the first ever Nerdy Crafter craft kit called Not Another Craft Kit. It really does include everything you need except batteries in order to make your own custom figure, which means you get a mold that looks like this, that will allow you to make a figure that looks like this, in which the box will give you the opportunity to create items like these ones here, and so many more possibilities. The ones you see on screen were sculpted by my friends and family, who are also beginners. But be quick, because this box is limited quantities. So before we go on to the topic of answering difficult questions and talking about some of the difficulties I've gone through, again, I always ask on Instagram whether you have some tough questions for me. I think next time I'm going to end up doing Twitter as well. So if you're not following me on any of these, I will link them down below. I am Nerdy Crafter on both of them. So many of you have been asking, how did the surgery go? So for those of you who may or may not know, I had to go for a procedure in the USA in order to fix my back problems. There's an 80% success rate. At this time, I can tell you, a week after my procedure, I feel well enough to test myself. I still have PTSD from the event that happened back in December, so I am scared to walk. I am scared to sit. Right now, I am not on any kind of painkillers, so I'm really excited to test this back and see how it goes. So needless to say, I am just really excited to be back on my feet, and technically, according to the doctor, I should be okay to start lightly exercising. So I've taken walks for the first time in a long time, and I can't wait to do more of that. It just feels great to do it. I don't want to jinx anything. I really appreciated all the well wishes on the video, and they made me smile and they put me in such a good mood. So thank you so much for being there. And I honestly just can't thank you enough for understanding. At this time, I'm just mentally in the right headspace. So I'm like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. So it's really difficult for those of us with chronic pains, or especially I find those who have never had chronic pains, to try and explain what it's like. Because they're called invisible illnesses for a reason. Someone may seem fine, someone might look okay, but they're fighting their own battles in the back. So unless I had actually said something, many people would not have guessed, would not have known that I've been fighting these battles in the background. And I know that many of you here, part of the Salt Shaker family, are also part of the spoonie squad. I didn't know what a spoonie was until someone told me. It's basically a coin term, term coined for people with basically chronic illnesses, chronic pains. And the term spoon, now correct me if I'm wrong, I could probably be wrong, possibly. Actually, the likelihood of me being wrong is quite high, but I'm very teachable. I have to say this, I am quite teachable. Now, the idea of a spoonie is that we have a limited amount of energy that we can spend. But the energy that we have is called a spoon. We measure it by spoons. How many spoons can I give to something? Let's say I have 10 spoons today. And depending on the day, it can take anywhere between 1 to 8 spoons. If I have 10 spoons, it can take anywhere between 1 and 8 spoons of my own energy to get up and just take a shower. But you do it when you can. So, and then you have 2 spoons left and you have to decide, hey, do I spend that on making dinner? Or can I do takeout and save those spoons, for example, to take the dog out for a walk kind of thing? So we have to budget the amount of spoons we have in order to get things done, basically. I think, now, again, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the YouTubers that I absolutely love, who also has limited amount of spoons, is Martina from the channel called Eat Your Kimchi. Now, this is a channel where it was a husband and wife team who would travel. They started off in Korea, and then they were in Japan, and then her adventure ended up where they separated. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole debate of the separation, but Martina, the person who has EDS and has a very limited amount of spoons, talks about something called building a ladder. And I really appreciate that concept of building a ladder for those who have chronic illnesses and to take one thing at a time. And it doesn't even necessarily have to just apply to people who have chronic illnesses and diseases, because I read a book a while ago that is by Don Miguel Ruiz. So I'm going back into my memory here. Don Miguel Ruiz wrote a book called The 4 Agreements, later became the Fifth Agreement or something of that sort. But the original book is called The 4 Agreements. And I remember that one of the chapters was, one of the agreements is give your 100%. However, little asterisk kind of on that side is the idea of 100% changes from day to day. Again, has nothing to do with someone who is, let's say, chronically ill, or just you as a person. Give your 100%, but do not be difficult on yourself on what the 100% is. Your 100% will be different if you are in a good mood. Your 100% will be different if you're in a bad mood. If you're not feeling well versus if you're feeling well versus, if it's just your 100% will change. And that's okay. Just give the 100% that you are capable of at the time. And don't say, I'm at my 50%. No, you are at your 100% at the time you are right now. And that's okay. You don't have to be difficult on yourself and say like, hey, my 100% yesterday was so good and today look at me, like I'm so pitiful. No, don't have that internal dialogue. And I'm just saying that from personal experience. We really should stop giving those thoughts merit. Because as someone who, personally for me, I used to be an athlete, right? So when I tried to think of myself, hey, I used to be able to do pull-ups. I used to, run a lot and do all these martial arts and lift all these weights. Yeah, that was my 100% back then before things happen. But if I'm able now with my back issues to go for a 20, 30-minute walk, That is my 100%. And you know what? I am gosh darn nabbit so proud of myself for going for that half an hour walk. Like, I feel good. You know, maybe in a past times like, oh, half an hour walk, Jackie, good job for you. Like, I do like 5 hours walk. Yeah, maybe. But 100% can differ from day to day. Let me know if you're interested in discussing the 4 agreements. I love the concept of the 100% differing from day to day. I love having philosophical discussions. But let me know if that's your thing too. So all that to say, just be nice to yourself. You be nice to yourself. You're doing the best you can with what you have, and that's okay. Okay? Look at me if you're looking. Listen to me if you're listening. I permit you. I don't think you need my permission, but if you need it, I'm giving you permission to go easy on yourself. Okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, to continue with the idea of today's video, is I really enjoyed actually going through the different questions you had for me, and I really wanted to answer more. So we're going to go ahead and answer more of your interesting questions. And I feel like every time I ask you to ask me questions, the concept or the idea of potatoes always come up. What are your obsessions with potatoes? Please. I don't get it. Actually, I do get it. I really love potatoes. But Coolvin22 specifically asks, what's your favorite form of potato? And I hope you fully recover. Good day. Thank you for the well wishes. I think my favorite form, this is really hard to choose. I love potato in all its forms. But if I had to choose one form of potato, I would have to say mashed potatoes with gravy. But if you had to tell me, no, you're not allowed gravy, you have to choose potato in its pure form, then I would have to say French fries. Probably. But if we're allowed to oh my God, I can't talk anymore. I'm thinking of potatoes. If I have to think of potatoes and it's an added form, mashed potatoes with gravy, 100% I can live off of that stuff. Anita Nordbert asks, I think I heard you have budgies. True? ? How many do you have and what are their names? Get well soon. Thank you, Anita. So, budgies, yes, you heard them earlier skeeting their little lungs out. I love the sound they make. It's like skeet, 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 and they can go on for a long time. Now, these budgies have an interesting backstory because they technically were not supposed to be mine, and they technically were not supposed to live with me as long as they have. They're kind of mine now. So, the story behind the budgies, these cute little green and blue birds that are easily found at pet stores where people buy them because they think they're introductory parrots, and please do not do that. Pets are for life, and don't buy them just to gift them to someone, and that's exactly what happened. One day I was visiting my aunt, and who's here also in Canada, and you know, Egyptian families, and we love gifting people. That's a thing. Every time you go to someone's house, you bring them gifts. In Egypt, normally, if you're invited to someone's house, you bring a shit ton of fruits. So I can bring like 2 kilos of banana with like 5 kilos of peaches and a bunch of mangoes. That's just the kind of thing you bring to someone's house, because if they invite you over for supper, you're thinking the fruits are basically dessert. Or you can bring, of course, other desserts like baklava is really big in Egypt as well. So this is important. I know it sounds like, why are you talking about fruits? We just talked about budgies. Just hear me out here, okay? Now, my aunt who's here, I love her so much. She has visitors very regularly. This person who's visiting her, for the first time in a long time, brought over a pair of budgies. And these budgies were in the tiniest cage ever. I'm telling you, I really don't think this cage is worth more than $10, $15, and it was round. And they brought her budgies in a bag of seeds, And they're like, here you go. Hi, welcome. Thank you for having me over. They gifted my aunt a pair of budgies as a thank you for inviting me over gift. It is gross. It is disgusting to do that because animals are sentient creatures. So to gift animals to someone who has never shown interest in birds whatsoever. My aunt does not care about birds. None. She loves dogs. She's not a bird person. But this person decided it was a great idea to gift her budgies. So she kept the budgies because what is she going to do? So she would keep them on the table in that tiny round cage. And I went to visit her a couple of times and I just saw the condition they were in. And I asked her, hey, do you want these budgies? Or do you want me to help you rehome them? Or do you want a bigger cage? So she was so happy to hear me ask her if she wanted those budgies because she said no, she doesn't want them. But I mean, they're cute kind of thing. So I called my dad and I asked him, hey, do you want budgies? And at the time, it was before his liver transplant surgery. And he said, you know what? Yeah, I kind of want, I'll take the budgies. It'll be nice, to have some kind of sound around the house other than the TV going on kind of thing. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to grab these budgies for you, get you a new cage, and we'll install them at your place. Fast forward, I took the budgies home. Pat was not pleased. He's not a bird person. I brought the budgies home. I grew up in a family where you don't ask for permission to bring a pet home. You just bring them and you let the significant other kind of deal with it at the time. So I brought the budgies home and I promised him. Little did I know that this promise was something even beyond me. I promised him I'm not keeping them. I had no intention of keeping the budgies. And he was like, okay, cool. So I got them a cage, a bigger cage, a square one, put them in there, and called my dad. I'm like, cool, I'm bringing you the budgies. And he said, all right, cool. So when I called him the day of and told him I'm bringing you the budgies, he's like, you know what? I'm not feeling well. I don't think I'm ready for the budgies. Let's wait until after my surgery. Fast forward 6 months later, then he had his surgery. Then I'm like, are you ready for the budgies? And he says, well, I don't even remember the timeline. My timeline's kind of messed up. I don't even know if it's 6 months or a year. All I remember is after the surgery, I'm like, are you ready for the budgies? He's like, no, I don't feel up. I'm not strong enough for budgies. Meanwhile, I'm like, these budgies need a bigger space. So I got them the biggest cage. You can't find them in that cage anymore, but they're really having fun in there. So I got them big cage, and they're mine now because I took care of them, got them big cage. They're not tame, but they're not scared of me either. If I'm holding food, they'll actually come and eat from it. So this is the story basically of my budgies that are not mine, but they're mine. I didn't intend on keeping the budgies, but yeah, that's the story of the budgies. I'm really curious to know, have you ever ended up with an animal that you did not mean to end up with? I know most people who have cats, it's because the cats just basically showed up. Not most people, but many people who don't intend on having cats, the cats just kind of showed up on their doorstep. CJ Create 8005 asks, what's your favorite childhood film? Mine's Finding Nemo / Dory. That is a really good question. There are different films depending on the stage of childhood. If we're going to go with nostalgia, I remember the first movie I ever saw at a theater. I think it was a vintage film day. And my dad dropped my brother and I at the movie theater because I guess he wanted alone time with my mom. And he gave us the tickets for the movie, gave us each maybe $1 to get popcorn or something. It was like a vintage theater with vintage movies. I think the movie itself was just $2 or something like that. And that same theater is actually still running here in Montreal. So you get really old movies for really cheap. And I'm not sure if it's still $2, but it probably is somewhere close enough to that. So in terms of nostalgia, the first movie I ever saw at a theater alone with my brother was E.T. So I think E.T. has a really special place in my heart, not because it's a great movie, but because I felt so independent. And one of the other great memories from going to the theater for the first time is that my brother and I just laughed so much at the scenes where I think E.T. burped or something like that. I can't remember entirely that movie. I just remember it was like an old movie and we were watching it. And I think I was 4 years old, by the way, when I saw that movie at the theater alone with my brother. And we finished our popcorn. And my brother goes to me, he's like, why don't you go to the front and ask them how much popcorn can we have for 25 cents? So I go to the concession stand. Obviously, it's the owner. It's not like, it was a mom and pop shop. So I go to the concession stand and I put a quarter on the shelf, on the desk thing. And I said, how much can I have for this? Now, for some people might be asking, well, how can you ask how much can you get for 25 cents? Let me preface this by saying that in Egypt, you can get a quantity of food based on how much you pay. So let's say, for example, I want falafels. I can get 25 cents worth of falafels or $1 worth of falafels. So you can get quantity based on the amount. So you can say, give me 25 cents worth of ABC. So I think I just kind of carried that idea with me. So I brought that quarter on there and I said, how much popcorn can I have for 25 cents? And it was hilarious because the owner I'm assuming it's the owner because he laughed and then filled up the entire popcorn container. And I came back to my brother with a full popcorn container and we were just it just felt normal. Like he laughed at us, well, at me, and then filled it up. Like that was just a pure moment right there. I don't know who that person is, but hey, if you ever remember a 4-year-old asking you for 25 cents worth of popcorn and you filled it up, thank you for making some great memories, because I never forgot that person. And so yeah, this person's part of my memory forever, which is great. So the other childhood movie I would have to say, I'm going to give a little bit of a warning here. Because of my timeline is a little messed up, sometimes they were in Egypt, other times they were back here in Canada. Egypt loves playing vintage movies on TV. So one of the other movies that I absolutely love, but it was played here, I think on TV was the first time I saw it, was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure with Keanu Reeves in there. That's definitely one of my favorite movies. I think the reason I liked it was because I felt like, hey, these are like teenagers and teenagers are cool. So I watched a teenager movie. So I definitely enjoyed Bill and Ted. It had like a really cool, time travel concept idea. So that for me, definitely one of my favorite movies, I would say. But if we have to talk about cartoons, childhood-wise, probably I would say I was obsessed with The Little Mermaid. Because, again, teenager, you want to rebel, and she was rebelling against her dad, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. But also Indiana Jones. I feel like I have different movies depending on different times that influenced part of my personality. So that's a whole other podcast. We can talk about like most influential movies and how they actually changed my life, believe it or not. I've had movies completely change my trail of thought. Oh, this here is a really difficult question. Night Stalker 55 asks, if you had to not know your husband or your sister, which would you choose? Holy carp. This is really a difficult question. I would dare say mean because I made the choice to read it though. because I think these are interesting questions hypothetically to ask. Which would I choose to not know? I'd rather not exist. Let me just put that out there. I would rather just not exist. If I had to choose one person to not know, I'd rather it be me. I just don't want to exist because these two people have had the most profound and important impact on my life that I can't imagine my life without either of them. That being said, if I really had to choose, I would say that I hate even vocalizing it. I would say the person I've known the longest is the person I would keep in my life. I'm not even going to say more than that because I don't want to vocalize it because these two people are the most important. Well, not just these two. My siblings in general are my most important people in my life. So I'm answering the question without directly saying it. There you go. Jules 33 Snyman, are you truly happy and content with who you are and where you are in your career? Man, these difficult questions are coming up now. So, am I happy? Yes. With where I am in my career? Yes. Not quite. So, some of you may or may not know, in addition to doing YouTube, I am also a teacher. More specifically, I am a professor. Some of you may have thought that I was elementary or high school, but no, it's actually college. So I dreamt of teaching at that college, and it's such an important part of my career because it was my dream job. But I am at a point now in my path where I don't know what to do because I love teaching. I hate grading. And I know that teaching takes up so much of my time. But with everything that happened, my health and everything, I'm starting to question what's important to me. And I think many of us in the last couple of years have had this chance to basically question ourselves and what's important, priorities, and where do we want to go? What do we want to do? With whom do we want to be? And it made me realize that I absolutely love teaching. I love being with the students. I love having those exchanges, but I hate grading. I hate grading papers. Absolutely. That is one of the worst things. Every teacher will tell you that grading is the biggest nightmare, just as being a teacher. So, and then there's everything that's been going on. I want to travel more while I can. I want to experience more and everything while I can. And what I'm talking about that is more like in the terms of physical limits and autoimmune limits. So part of me is 80% ready to quit teaching. So part of me is not happy in terms of having to make those difficult choices. But I think it's also okay to talk about the idea of why is it that in our society we're told that we have to choose a job and stay within that domain for the rest of our lives. I think it's an unfair request to make from a teenager when you're trying to choose a career. Like, why is it as a teenager we have to choose a career that's going to stay with us for the entire remainder of our lives, for the next 40 to 50 years? I guess it depends on what the age of retirement is in different countries. Here in Quebec, the age of retirement is 67. And as the population gets older and we get younger, more likely than not, the age of retirement is going to end up being closer to 70s. So that's something that we have to consider. Like, why should we be obliged to live and do a job for the next 40 years? We as people are not the same at the age of 21 that we are at the age of 35. So I think having a kind of pivot when it comes to a career or change, it's something that should be normalized. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just like trying to, justify my own moves, but I think it's something that we really should think about. Why should we be obliged to stay in that one path? We are different people at different stages of our lives, and we have different interests and different things that bring us joy. I might be rambling here, but this is something that I truly and wholeheartedly believe in. And that's why when sometimes I have chats with my students back then, and, they were saying, I already did, 2 years of college, and I already took sciences, so I should technically continue going into sciences. And I'm like, no. Just because you put in effort into something, it doesn't mean that you have to lock yourself into it for the rest of your life. No, because then you're not going to be happy about it. And that's the other thing, especially with ethnic parents. So because of my Egyptian background, we were always told one of many career choices, but more as a female, we were told, hey, you're going to end up, a housewife with kids anyways, don't worry too much about schooling. But for me, when I wanted to do a career, the choices I basically had were doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Those were the 3 choices. And I think a lot of students who come with ethnic backgrounds and ethnic parents are probably in careers they do not like. So maybe there's a reason why a lot of students or a lot of people who are doctors who come from ethnic backgrounds don't love being doctors. And maybe that's why they have really crappy bedside manner. That's just a theory, but that's my guess. As someone who came from ethnic parents, there's a lot of pressure to perform as a doctor or lawyer or engineer. So you have all these people that are miserable in their lives being something that their parents wanted them to be. And then they have to do that for the next 40 to 45 years. Like, that's unfair. So I think I'm basically I'm basically putting you through my trailed thoughts here in order to try and figure out, is it train of thoughts or trail of thoughts? I think it's a trail of thoughts, right? It can't be a train. I'm sidetracking myself. But wait, if it's a sidetrack, trains go on tracks. So it's a train of thought. Huh. You know what? Now I'm curious. Is it train of thought or trail of thought? You're going to learn this with me because I can't be the only one learning about it here. Let's see. Train of thought or trail of thought. And according to Google, train of thought. There you go. So it is train, not trail. But you know what? I guess it makes sense because I just said the word track. If I say I lost track of what I was saying, it's a train. There you go. You learned it here first. It's interesting for those of us, I think, specifically who speak other languages than English as our first language. These expressions are always very interesting. So I would have to say, am I truly happy where I am right now? And the answer is no. I'm not truly happy because I have to make decisions and I have to be firm about making them. And I'm very quick to, to say it's not okay for someone else to do that because they need, peace of mind and, getting on with their lives and doing other things that they love. But it's harder for me to put it in practice. So I need to practice what I'm preaching. So I think I'll make a final decision. I'm at 80% right now, so I think I'm going to have to make a final decision by December if I'm quitting at 100% or not. Just the thought of quitting is already pretty scary. Card Captor asks, what is the hardest thing you've been through and any tips on how you overcame it? Buckle up, put your seatbelt on, because one of the most difficult things I've had to go through was the betrayal of a father figure. Now, I'm going to make a long story as short as possible. Now, this story goes way back when I started doing martial arts. The person that taught me martial arts quickly became a very important father figure in my life, was an amazing person at the time. But little did I know that this person had narcissistic tendencies, and I was very much so manipulated, but gave that person the benefit of the doubt. So long story short, I trained at that specific karate school for a long time. And I would say close to, actually probably more than 10 years, I trained at that karate school. So that person really was part of my life. And as I grew up, I ended up becoming one of the head instructors at that karate school because that person, my karate teacher, kept asking me to teach classes. Hey, Jack, can you take over my class? Hey, Jack, can you do this for me? Hey, Jack, can you, I'm going out of town for, a couple of weeks. Could you teach the next 6 classes for me? So naturally, I'm like, oh, I'm gaining more responsibilities. I am the coolest senpai ever. And yeah, I was teaching basically the majority of the classes at that school because I was given the opportunity and I ate it all up. I was even given the responsibility of training the kids at the karate school to get ready for tournaments. So we would go at tournaments and they would win. They wiped the floor with the other competitors. I know nowadays, actually, I don't know if nowadays it's as competitive, but for sure it's not what it used to be in terms of martial arts. But yeah, the competitions were fierce. Our school was like the number one in Montreal. We won a lot of trophies. Our kids did the best. We were in the newspaper. And a few years of being given the opportunity to have all that space, slowly parents would come and talk to me. He did not like that. He liked the fact that I would take over the responsibilities but not get the recognition. Mind you, I didn't see it that way. I just thought I was, removing that responsibility because that was given to me. So that father figure person, and I'm going to tell you how much, don't think it was me taking up that space, because there were times where my back had given out. I was in pain. He would drive all the way into my house, my apartment, tell me he's downstairs, and told me to come down. So I would come down painfully from the 2nd floor, and he would drive me all the way to the karate school and be like, you can teach now. So he didn't care for my well-being. He just wanted what I could offer. And I'll never forget those times where I had even food poisoning. I told him I wasn't feeling well. And he still drove to my place, picked me up, brought me to the karate school, and I still taught. And then another time when my sister was at the hospital, and he's like, and I called him, and I can't teach tonight. My sister's in the hospital. He's like, oh, just because she has a tummy ache, you should make it. I'm like, no, I'm not coming. He's like, no, I'm coming over, and then you can go and teach, and then you can go see your sister again. I'm like, no. So instead of teaching the class, that son biscuit closed the doors and then blamed it on me for not showing up. That's the kind of person it was. But it only got worse as I kept saying no when things were important at the time. So again, I'm trying to make a long story really short. These things happened throughout years. So I didn't think much of it because when you're young, you kind of look at someone who's older than you as someone who has your best interest in their mind kind of thing. But what ended up happening is these accumulations of people recognizing me for the accomplishments of the school kind of got him a little, actually quite irrational, because he started to make things up that didn't happen in order to demonize me. What does that mean? I showed up to the karate school once, and he comes up to me and he said, one of the parents told me, this is his words, he goes, Jack, one of the parents told me that you tried to get them to sign a petition to kick me out of the school. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, someone said that you had a petition to kick me out of the school. In my head, I'm like, excuse me? How, logically, How can I make a petition to kick someone, the owner of the school, who pays the rent, has the lease under their name, the school has their name on it. How would I have a petition to kick them out of their school? I'm like, so who said that? He goes, it doesn't matter, it's someone I trust. I'm like, who is it? He goes, it doesn't matter, it's someone I trust. I'm like, but dude, like, I've been with you the longest out of all the students and all the parents here. Who is it that you trust that could have said something like that above me, who's been there for you through thick and thin? He wouldn't give me any names. So I basically started crying because I'm like, dude, like, I did not do that. This is my home. This is where I trained. This is where I found my identity. The karate is a huge part of it's tattooed on me. That's how much of an identity I have with karate. So I'm okay now, by the way, but it was a really tough time back then. So one day, it was really a couple of days after that event, he comes into the karate school when it was my class to teach. And he tells me, you are no longer welcome in this school. And everything, my whole existence, I put into question at that one moment. He told me, get out of this karate school. After 10 years of being at that karate school, growing up as a child, having this fatherly figure person kick me out of the only place that I knew as my like second home. And he kicked me out. And I was like, why? And he was just saying that I was a bully and toxic. And I did not understand where it came from. Years later, though, I ended up understanding why he did that. And it's because he was trying to use another student as a scapegoat to say that I bullied them. But that person was actually my best friend. My best friend and I talked about it. And it turned out like he was really twisted. He was playing mind games in the back. Either way, he ended up kicking me out. I lost it. That was probably the most difficult part of my life, because at the same time while all this was happening, I had a stalker ex-boyfriend who wouldn't leave me alone and had like my bank information, my key. Like that was a really tough time in my life. So when he kicked me out of my karate school, at the same time, Pat was also there. So he saw me leave crying. Pat left the karate school. We both left at the same time. And since then, Pat is the one who like consoled me because I was super depressed. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go anywhere. And it really was thanks to Pat that he got me out of that funk. But that was probably one of the most difficult periods of my life because everything was happening at the same time. Meanwhile, I also got kicked out of the gym that I was going to, which was near the karate school, because these guys were friends with my karate instructor. So they kicked me out. So that was a whole shit show, to be honest. So I would have to say that is probably one of the most difficult times. Now, the other part of the question is any tips on how I overcame it? The only reason I overcame it was because I had a strong support system from my siblings, but also Pat's perseverance. I really don't know what I would have done if it weren't for Pat's perseverance, and because my life revolved around the karate school. So all my friends at the karate school basically took the karate instructor's side, which was really interesting because let's go about this karate thing in one more thing. I'm saying the word thing a lot, but in karate, the idea of loyalty is huge. If you even go and think about training at another karate school, they call you a backstabber. So that's something to think about. So yeah, if you find someone is asking you to do a lot and then they don't like the fact that you're getting the recognition, this person was using you. They are a narcissist, and end of story. And I do see that this same person who treated me this way is treating other people that way. They just love it when people are subservient and don't ask too many questions. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that, but basically they just like it when people are subservient. And I noticed that. I know that now as an adult, but I was not the wiser as a younger person. Pause McFly asks, can we ever purchase your work? That is a very good question, and the answer for now is no. But maybe one day, one of my dreams is to actually have a pottery business. Not yet. Maybe in a few years, maybe next year. I don't know. I need more pottery lessons. So I'm going to continue taking pottery lessons when things are opened up again, because I would love to do more pottery. Maybe I'll have like store updates once in a while and make more pottery, and you'll be able to have some of that stuff. But for now, the answer is no, because I don't think my work is good enough to sell, my opinion. Maybe, who knows? Maybe when I get more practice. Loving Bendy Art. Do you sniff your pets at random times? Absolutely 100% yes. I just grab their little faces and go, oh, you smell like summer. I love my pets and I love sniffing them. They really do smell good. I love my animals very much. I love them very much. They're basically my kids. I was thinking the other day, I wanted a cat stroller. Would it be weird to get a cat stroller? It would basically, like, I know Splinter wants to go out. It would, yeah, I think it's going to basically encourage me to go out for more walks, because I want to please my pets, and at the same time, it's going to be a walk. Some of you might be saying, why don't you just get a dog? You don't need a stroller for that. I don't need a dog. Dogs are great when they belong to other people, because I do not want that responsibility on me. I don't want too much attention. That's definitely one of the things that I think is too much for me. Lady 5908 asks, do you ever have any regrets being a public figure? P.S. I love you. I never see myself as a public figure, to be honest. I'm just Jackie, and I'm just Jackie with people who randomly say hi to me, and it just feels friendly, because everyone else that I've met has been so friendly and just so sweet, and I love meeting you grains. The only thing I have to say is that I am an introvert. I might not seem like it, but I am an introvert, and I am extremely shy. So when I have the courage to say hi to someone, please know that it is from the utmost niceness of me, and I am really trying, and it takes a lot for me to say hi because I want to. I'm just a really, really socially shy person. So if you say hi to me, I will be so happy, because I know that many of you are shy. Many of you are also worried. Don't. If you see me, come and say hi. I want to say hi. I don't have any regrets other than the fact that I'm just a very shy person, and I'm anxious. So that's it. I don't have any regrets. I'm just constantly aware of the potential of being recognized, but I don't regret it. Then again, I'm not as huge as many other creators, so I don't have that issue of constantly being recognized. So I think so far so good. I don't have any regrets. Cat and Raven Designs ask, habit or behavior of yours you wish you could stop. I have a really bad habit of putting things down. But Jackie, putting things down sounds like a normal thing. You pick them up and you put them down. No, that's not what I mean. I have a bad habit of putting things down where they shouldn't be, where I should be putting them away. So if I pick up something from the fridge, use it, I put it down on the counter. What I should be doing is picking it up, using it, putting it away. And interestingly enough, on TikTok, someone did a mantra, and it's been in my head since then. Put it away, don't put it down. 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 Yes, I'm saying it that often because this person on the TikTok said it that often. So now that mantra is in my head. Put it away, don't put it down. So for the last 3-4 days, I've legitimately been putting things away, not putting them down, because it's constantly in my head. Let me know if you have a habit like that. That is really interesting, that it just sometimes takes a mantra to change a habit. And with that, I'm going to wrap up Coffee and Conversation. Thank you for listening. Until then, I'll see you in the next podcast.